colleagues in the House will use that moment wisely. Thank you, Chair.
John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to debate the future spending of the Foreign Office. The Foreign Affairs Committee, which I sit on, has shared the concern expressed by the Honourable Lady about the impact of the settlement, which is going to result in significant reductions in the headcount within the department, and we have tried in vain to discover exactly how that is going to impact on the different activities of the Foreign Office. But it seems to me utterly extraordinary that at a time when the world is becoming ever more a dangerous place and the need for British diplomacy and British soft power increases, that we should be cutting back spending on the Foreign Office. I fully support the ambition of the government, indeed press the government to go further to increase spending on defence. But soft power is as important as hard power. And actually, that is the area on which this country has built an extraordinary reputation for effectiveness, and yet we are potentially going to cut it back just at the time when it is needed most. I would ask the Minister specifically to say what is the future of the Soft Power Council, which was set up by the last Foreign Secretary, something I strongly welcomed. The Foreign Affairs Committee took evidence about the work of the Soft Power Council, but it has gone very quiet in recent months, and I hear disturbing rumours that it is no longer regarded as a priority by the Department. So I hope he will be able to assure me that that is not the case in his response. There are three areas of Foreign Office funding that I specifically want to touch on. The first, which was mentioned by the Honourable Lady, is the BBC World Service. It is the case that the need for reliable, trusted information around the world is greater than it has ever been before. And yet, at this time, we are seeing withdrawal from that of America. Voice of America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Asia have all been cut right back and leaving a gap which I was told this morning is being filled by Russia and China. It means that the BBC World Service becomes even more important as virtually the sole reliable source to which people can turn. And yet now, I understand, the BBC World Service have still not been told how much money they're going to get in 2026-27. I was allowed to appear with the Public Accounts Committee a few weeks ago when we had the Director General of the BBC and the Director of the World Service ahead, who said to us how impossible it is to plan ahead if they don't know how much money they're going to get. And yet now here we are, weeks later, with just a few weeks to go before the beginning of the financial year, and they have not been told. So I would ask the Minister to confirm whether or not the BBC World Service are in a position to receive the news of how much they're going to get, and also to press him to increase that money, because originally the BBC World Service were told that they should plan for either a real terms freeze or indeed a possible cash cut. And this comes at the same time that the licence fee is under pressure and the BBC are making reductions on their contribution to the World Service through the licence fee. So it is subject to a double squeeze. And I have said before, I have considerable sympathy with the World Service, but actually the right mechanism of funding is through the government and the Foreign Office, and I support the BBC's request that the government do consider moving back to a position where it is fully funded by the government. The second area I want to touch on is the British Council. Now, the British Council, we know, face huge challenges, principally as a result of the loan that was advanced to them during the time of COVID. And unlike many other organisations which were given loans and were not required to repay them, the British Council is being required to repay the loan, even though it appears there is almost no prospect of their being able to do so. In fact, at the moment, the British Council's outgoings are greater than its income. So not only can they not pay the loan, they are not even currently viable. I know, and I thank the Minister for the briefing, which I am the Chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, have been given about the future of the British Council. And I would simply urge the Minister to press ahead with drawing up a plan which will both meet the existing challenges but also set out a route forward which will put the British Council on a firm footing, because it does incredibly important work, particularly in those parts of the world where malign forces are seeking to influence democratic elections and the attitudes of people. I give way to the honourable gentleman.
Thank the honourable gentleman for giving way to making a very powerful point about the British Council and the work that it does. A lot of that work is required to actually counter malign Russian and Chinese influence, in that there are a number of countries that are desperate to get out of the grasp of China. And they are countries that would like to see greater friendship with us, and to do that they are trying to encourage a shift in the culture or how their young people engage, and that is delivered through the British Council and English language training. Would he agree with me that some of the value that is applied to this training isn't necessarily seen directly and perhaps should be assigned to security and defence?
That the honourable gentleman makes a very fair point. He's absolutely right about the importance of the work, which is not always fully visible, both in established countries. I mean, I have a particular knowledge and interest in the Baltic nations, which are on the front line against Russia, and where there are, particularly in Latvia, a Russian minority population, which is subject to constant barrage of Russian attempts to influence, and that is an area where the British Council are very active, and I am concerned at reports that the British Council may be forced to withdraw from its activities in the Baltic nations. But as he rightly says, there are other countries where Russia and China are active, which are strategically of huge importance, but which are at risk of tipping back towards the orbit of hostile powers. And the British Council can play an important part in seeking to prevent that. I'll give way again to the gentleman.
That's a very good example, but I also want to make sure that we all understand that those examples aren't just the front line against Russia. Actually, some of these countries are in Africa when they actively need help in being able to draw our aid and the other contributions that we give away from that influence. And we should be actively supporting countries such as Gabon, where they are trying to be a strong partner for the Commonwealth, or in Mozambique, where the language isn't of English naturally.
I completely agree with the honourable gentleman. Africa is of huge importance, and if ever we needed a reminder of the risk to the values we hold from hostile powers, and in particular China, we got a perfect demonstration of that in the statement just an hour or so ago. The third area I just want to touch on, and the Minister, I'm delighted, has specific responsibility in this area, and I very much welcome the commitment he has already shown to it, and that is media freedom. The Global Coalition for Media Freedom was established under the last government by the Secretary of State for Culture, Foreign Secretary at the time. I'm trying to remember Jeremy Hunt's constituency, but the right honourable gentleman for Godalming. I'm most grateful to the whip on the bench, and it is great news that the Foreign Secretary was able to announce, I think at Munich just recently, that the UK is going to take back the chair of the Media Freedom Coalition. It is even more important today than it was when it was set up. But I would just hope that by taking back the chair, it will not just be symbolic, but it will be matched by a real commitment to promote media freedom, which also is under huge threat at the moment in a wide range of countries. We have seen journalists threatened with imprisonment, harassment, and in some cases murdered. And the UK has a very important role to play in promoting media freedom and taking a lead with such things as the introduction of visas for journalists who are under threat, with sanctions against journalists, and I was pleased to see that Georgia, we have just placed sanctions. Madam Deputy Speaker, you are indicating to me that, and I know other people wish to speak, so I will leave it with those three areas, and I would hope the Minister will be able to say a little more about that.